Normally I'd wait until the furnace stopped. It's right here. Can't open the door too long because the wet cat food's in there and Bear knows it's there. Bear, why don't you come up here? Come on. Okay, one sec. Come here. Oh, come here. Come on. Come on up here. There you go. All right. Bear's present. Let's discuss what I'm here to discuss. There was a tweet today from Selena Vega. Zoom in on that. I support unionization. And they fired her. It's a bad look for the WWE. There's been a lot of talk about WWE and how they treat the wrestlers for decades. This goes back to the 80s. Jesse Ventura was discussing unionizing, and Hulk Hogan, being Hulk Hogan, went running off to tell Vince. Vince came back to basically tell Ventura to knock it off, or else he's out of there. And Ventura found that other wrestlers just didn't have the interest in their own rights or their own safety or healthcare or anything. So he's like, all right, screw these guys then. And with 2020 being as it is, and all the uncertainty around 2020, I can certainly understand wrestlers starting to say, we deserve a little bit more. Now, people will point out AEW doesn't have a union either. My counter to that would be AEW also allows its wrestlers to have social media accounts. It allows their wrestlers to appear in New Japan. AEW's looking like they're going to start working with Impact Wrestling as well. And just, NWA titles showing up on their show. It looks like they're being inclusive and bringing in different companies, working with different companies. This is fantastic. If they could work something out and bring in ROH and have all these companies all working, under that umbrella, AEW can promote them, right, which helps them, and then they in turn can help to promote AEW, and you can get kind of a farm system going where maybe a guy's not getting as much time in AEW as he would be if he was in Impact, and you send him to Impact, that kind of thing, right? So I think what AEW is doing, I don't think they necessarily require a union the way that WWE does. It doesn't feel like it's the same relationship between boss and wrestlers between the two companies. Everything I've heard about Tony Khan has been that Tony Khan has been really good to the wrestlers. And eventually, at some point, maybe it turns out it's like an Eric Bischoff situation. He's too fair, and the wrestlers run him over, and the company's losing money. But right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. And we've seen some wrestlers get kind of disgruntled, but not many. And I do wonder, like with WWE, are there others that are going to stand up for Zelina Vega? Because what I've experienced in companies that are fighting against unionization, fear's great. Fear works really well. One of the jobs I had, there was talk of a unionization at one point. I stayed away from it. They're like, you can go to the meeting here, we can unionize, we can get together, we can unionize, and there were flyers, and I kept throwing the flyers out, and I kept saying, leave me out of this. I don't want anything to do with it. And basically, what our employer told us was, hey, you guys want to unionize? That's great. But guess what? The last place that unionized in our company, we closed that place down within 3 months. So if you unionize, we'll close down. Wouldn't that be a shame? WWE doesn't have that threat. They're not going to close up a company that makes billions of dollars because there's a union in place. And really, it comes down to WWE treats some of its wrestlers very well, but its general reputation with former wrestlers is poor, and its treatment of wrestlers comes down to, I think a lot of it is the individual independent contractor thing versus employee. Well, they're not employees, they're individual contractors. And and now what? So now they've fired Zelina Vega. For those who don't know, Aleister Black is her husband in real life. They already took away their Twitch channel. She had an OnlyFans she was running. There's no nakedness on the OnlyFans either. It's just her cosplay stuff. She has some amazing cosplay outfits. 100% agree with her wanting to be able to monetize that. She's great at it. She's intelligent. She's well spoken. And I really thought she brought something different to the women's division. And I thought she was finally starting to get that push. Now, this is where every single wrestling fan will say this. AEW should pick her up. And that's what we say about every wrestler, right? And then that's when you get into the argument of, well, AEW is just washed up WWE wrestlers. No, it's not. A lot of the wrestlers that are going there aren't necessarily older like they were when they left WWE to go to WCW. They're just guys who have been used in a way that they don't feel is to their the utmost of their ability. And it reminds me more of when guys were leaving WCW to go to WWE. The most famous being when the New Radicals showed up at ringside. You had Eddie Guerrero, you had Dean Malenko, you had Perry Saturn, you had Chris Benoit. And I have never in my life before then or since then marked out that much as when the four of them got in the ring and beat the hell out of DX. I went completely bonkers. And I know AEW, they go to that well often. I didn't think for instance, the reveal for Miro, I didn't think was well done. I thought with Rusev, they could have done it better, and certainly their reveals have been lackluster. But there's still that sort of marking out moment that you get when guys come out and you say, "Wow, this is really cool that these guys are on here." Example I would use is Brody Lee. Brody Lee's older by wrestling standards, right? But at the same time, he wasn't really a speaker in WWE. He really wasn't given a chance other than to be Luke Harper. And I mean, I'm sure he got paid very well, and he had an Intercontinental title run. But then you look at what they've done with him in AEW, and it's night and day. And I find myself thinking, if he'd been allowed to talk like this in WWE, him and Bray could have co-run some kind of cult in WWE. Like they could have co-run it. It would have been just great, sort of like what he's doing with Dark Order now. AEW does have things to clean up. I think they're getting better. And if they added Zelina Vega to their women's roster, I think she'd fit in with Dark Order. I think so would Aleister Black. The problem would be then you have too many members. You got to kick a couple out. You can't get a group and then bloat them with too many numbers. NWO proved decades ago you have a law of diminishing returns on that. I'm still I just it seems like they didn't handle it in a way that's going to make them look good to anybody. If you're anti-union, cool. All right, but I can just say from having worked for places that were unionized and places that weren't, places where there was a union, you have a certain protection you do not have in a non-unionized place. You have certain rights you do not have in a non-unionized place. And if you have a really good boss, you don't need the union. You really don't. You have a good boss, you've got good wages, and everything's good. A union? But if you've got a very large company and you feel like people aren't being treated properly, you've got some concerns, it's good to have a union for the go-between. It's not always about how much money you make. Sometimes it's about other protections. In my former job, there were people who got fired, right? They get fired. They call the union. The union comes in. You sit down with the person who got fired and the bosses, and guess what? They're rehired. They're back. Because the union says the way you fired this guy wasn't right. Or maybe the boss will say, well, we already gave him all the written warnings. And then they say, well, where's the paperwork? When did you give him the written warnings? Oh, we didn't actually give him the written warnings. Then he's not fired because you didn't give him the written warnings. And if you don't have a union, you don't have any of that. You're just out of a job. So there are protections there. And in a company where, that they're selling this product with people putting their lives on the line, and you look at the long-term health consequences some guys in the 80s and 90s had, that's legit, where their quality of life is adversely affected for forever after they're done wrestling. I don't think them asking for a little bit extra safeguard that a union would provide, I don't think that's asking too much. And I think that by firing Zelina Vega, rather than sitting down with her and trying to figure out, okay, there's other wrestlers who are upset. Paige, I think, is the next one who's going to get fired because she's making so much money on Twitch. She will not shut her Twitch down. I actually started following her like last week to see how often she's on. She's on a lot. And she's basically saying, fire me, because the amount of money she makes on Twitch is likely as much as she was making in WWE, but she can't wrestle. She's never going to wrestle again. Her neck is buggered. So her argument is, hey, I'm never going to wrestle again. You guys are trying to take money from me that I'm earning under my own name. And that's where the whole gray area comes in, right? Because the argument was, well, as long as they use their real names, they should be okay. And WWE said, no, we employ you. your name is built on being famous through us, so no. And so they got taken off of Cameo and they got taken off of Twitch, and AJ Styles had to take his Twitch down. And yeah, it seems like they're trying to find some other kind of way to kind of make it up to them a little bit, but it's a way that they'll make the money too. And when you've got a company in WWE that apparently last quarter reported record profits, it's not a great look. It's not a great look when you're firing people, and you're recording record profits, and then you're trying to take money back from wrestlers that they're earning on the side because there aren't house shows. And yeah, the downside on their contract is worth X amount of dollars. But I mean, for them, if they're saying, well, you can do this, but then we'll take that off of how much money we owe you, well, then why should I do it at all? I was trying to earn it on top of that money. So now you're telling me just don't work. All right. Just don't do anything online. Okay. So I don't think this fight's over. I don't. Because I guarantee that while Zelina Vega is the only one that lost her job today thus far, there are others within the company that are going to be watching that and going, what the hell? Seriously, what the hell? Wrestlers have never en masse said, we're not working today. We're not doing it. Because there is no show without the wrestlers. There's nothing without the wrestlers. And until they have that unity to say, you know what? We're not going to work today because this is wrong. It doesn't change. So we'll see if it ever changes. But Selena Vega's out of a job. And I think that's a crying shame because I think she's very talented. I liked her when she was in TNA as well. When she was with Sarita. Of course, she was let go in the Purge in April. She was one of the trainers in WWE. And that was too bad as well. So, yeah, I do think Zelina lands on her feet. I think she'll make good money online. Now she can get her Twitch back up and running because who cares? And there are other wrestlers who may very well take that same attitude of, hey, if you guys fire me, then I can go back to having my social media accounts and I can make money on my own. So we'll see what happens. How far down the rabbit hole does this go? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for all your support and for watching. I will talk to you again soon.